I don't say how are you all this evening of your time as you create time to evening. In this way, allow us to proceed and continue with the idea of the interaction we have been sharing with you of late. That being the idea of putting into your physicalized awareness the ideas you are willing to be in life and allowing yourself to live them actively in that way. Knowingly, allowing yourself the freedom to understand that that which occurs in your own imagination, that which occurs within your own feeling, that which occurs within your own mentality, is a reflection of the ideas you chose to be in that way by being physical this lifetime. And in that sense, grant yourselves the freedom, the same freedom, to be the idea you perceive yourselves to be, as creation has granted you in the idea of your existence to begin with. Now, we have discussed and described the idea of this specific time frame as your mass consciousness has chosen to create it, of being one of activity, and active you have been. In this way, allow us to say, understand that as the actions that are occurring in your society, in your civilization, upon your planet, are becoming, in your terms, more blatant, rising to the surface in this way, and not in this way existing so much underground any longer. It is giving you all an opportunity to understand the different scenarios you have all been allowing to exist and creating to exist for so many years in your society. In this way, granting you an opportunity to see whether or not the ideas that are now occurring more blatantly, as you would call it in that way, upon the surface in your civilization, are ideas that you feel express the reality you would like to experience in your world in this way, giving yourselves an opportunity to act upon the scenarios you see, not out of malice, not out of accusation, not out of judgment, but out of willingness and unconditional love to respond to the scenarios you are witnessing going on in your world in this day and age and in that way, allowing you the opportunity to reflect to the individuals who are involved in some of the scenarios you may feel to be negative in your terms, the opportunity to know that you exist, and in your existence you prefer a positive scenario, you prefer the idea of peace in your world, of harmony in that way, and that you are not cut off, not separated from those incidents, that you yourselves are your governments, are your sociological institutions, are your economic institutions, are your religious institutions, as well as your political institutions. You are equal to these ideas, and the idea of many interactions which have been in your terms covert, now coming to the surface, is giving you an opportunity to recognize that you are now willing to look at all of these things and less willing to, as you would say, push them under the rug, turn your back, not take responsibility for the ideas you are co-creating in your reality. But now that you know they are coming to the surface, let that be a symbol to each and every one of you that you are now strong enough to look at these ideas. You do not have to run in fear, feel that your world is falling apart because you are witnessing what you, I'll say, refer to as negative scenarios in your life and time. It is an opportunity for you to know that if you can witness these ideas, it is an indication that you are strong enough in this way to choose that which is more of a representation of the reality you do desire to exist within individually and collectively. Are you following along?
Yes.
In this way, as you give yourselves your own barometer, if you will, to use that terminology, your own arrow, your own signpost pointing the way, more and more of what has been bubbling in your subconscious, in your unconscious, is going to be coming to the surface. But understand, and never at a rate greater than you can understand, than you can do something with. Otherwise, there would be no point. Recognize life and creation is not pointless in that way. You will never be allowing yourself to perceive something that is not there for a reason you can make sense of, you can understand. If you could not understand it, it would have no reason being there in that way, and it would serve nothing in terms of your purpose of growth and spiritual awakening. Are you following me?
Yes.
In this way, therefore, allow yourselves not to run from fear, but to joyously accept the opportunity to now witness all of the ideas that have been perpetuated through judgment, through fear, through negativity, as they rise to the surface, not feeling like they are going to overwhelm you, but greet them with joy, because now that you are meeting them on the surface, it is an indication to each and every one of you that you are ready and willing to look at them in the hard light of your self-illuminated creative reality and to choose whether or not these ideas that have been held underground for so long are ideas you wish to continue to experience in your world or not. You follow me? We will thank you for your willingness to be so bold in your life, to allow yourselves the opportunity to recognize that change in positive ways has been your desire and is now becoming manifest in your world within each and every one of you, that allows yourself to continue to know that that's the idea of peace and harmony is the reality you feel most deeply, most strongly, with the most excitement and ecstasy. Then you yourself are calling forth all of these negative scenarios, all of the forgetfulness, all of the suppressed ideas, so that you can operate and function within clarity, clairvoyance within your own life, and the freedom to know that the choice is yours to make. You have complete and total self-empowerment to choose the lives you wish to lead. You are now, in our perspective, from our point of view, in what you are now creating, allowing yourselves to be willing to take the responsibility upon yourself. Not the responsibility in the notion of blame, but responsibility in the notion of that you are the creators of your reality. We extend our appreciation to you for your willingness to be exactly who you have chosen to be. And we continue this night of your time within the idea of the sharing. Sharing.
Bashar?
Yes!
Do you have a question?
Oh, right.
What's your question?
How did Rob's phone calls get ripped off?
Do you mean how or why?
How?
How? In this way, do you find that you have discussed this idea with your brother and that he has some notions?
Yeah.
What did he say? Understand, he is intimately connected to any scenario he is going to create in his life in that way. Does he have his own feelings on how and why he thinks he co-created that incident? What are his attitudes toward the idea of his education? Of the limiting, the bracketing, the jacketing that he may feel his education may be putting him within? Does Rob care to answer?
No.
Do you really feel it is any big mystery in this way that you would choose to remove the symbols of something you feel to be such a rigid structure in your life? In this way, understand that you are simply part and parcel one more idea in that way of a co-creation, of allowing yourself to explore all the different symbols, though it does not have to happen in that way, that your educational system is going through. The changes that are taking place within the educational system will create many symbols within the system that will seem to be a breakdown, so to speak, if you wish to put that in quotes, a breakdown of authority in that way, of rule in that way. The ability for individuals to come and go and to, so to speak, let us say, penetrate the barriers of others, to violate others in that way. But recognize, the idea simply is that within your educational system has also been created individuals who have chosen to allow themselves not to know their own power and are, in their own terms, weak enough to be attracted to someone who wishes them to remove those symbols for them so that they will not feel they have to do it themselves, will have an excuse to say that they do not have to fit into the structure, rather than simply allowing themselves to know that in that way they are creating their own understanding of that structure and do not have to have someone else do their dirty work. Now, I am not chastising, but we are picking the symbols and the words that will make the most sense at this time. You follow me?
Yeah.
Can you, in that way, on your own time, in your own words, and with the love that we perceive to be within your heart, Share these ideas with your brother and explain the notion.
Yeah.
Thank you. Will that be all right, Dee? Thank you. Sharon!
Bashar?
Yes.
I've got a question. I don't know much about your planet, but you said that you don't use money, as I understand.
We do not have the need for the tool when every individual is being of service to every other individual and finds themselves to be in exactly the right place and the right time to be of service and find themselves being served by the individual that they are serving. There is no need for an artificial symbol of the exchange. The exchange is immediate.
All right, well, I was looking at our situation, and we use money, and
Yes.
I've just kind of had a different perspective of it lately, and that is that
All right.
it's,
Do
very,
share.
it's a very useful tool
Of course.
for me to show what I do want to support.
Of course. In your society, since you have created a tool, you might as well use it in that way. Understand it will change in time as your understanding of yourselves changes, as you pull back all the symbology within yourself. Then the tools, one by one, will vanish.
Okay, well, what I'm curious about is, for example, if I was going to buy a new car, I realized that I am choosing to support that group of engineers and designers and salespeople and service people that have turned out a top quality job. So I pick one out of 100 that I want to support with
All
my
right.
money.
That is not to say that your tool of money is necessary for you to acquire a car in that way, but it is one way.
No, but I mean, it's also a nice way to show support
Yes.
to a particular team.
Of course.
And I'm curious about how you can show support to a team like that, for example, in my case, halfway across the world, because they're in Japan and they're designing and they're doing their thing, and so I want to support them because I really think they're doing a great job.
Well, go and tell them.
Well, I am by buying their product.
Well, all right. You can also go and tell them.
Right.
Understand, they will appreciate that type of support as well. And that is more reflective of what we do in our civilization.
Okay.
We interact directly with the individuals that are responsible for any particular creation that we happen to find being of service to us. And support them. Allowing them to share the services that each individual, finding merit in their service, wishes to share back. You follow me? We go and perform service for their service.
Oh, I see. Okay. That makes a little more sense.
Oh, all right. It is an action rather than a symbolic idea in the exchange in that way. We simply find ourselves creating the time to interact with those individuals directly.
But doesn't money allow the possibility to support a lot more people in a lot of different ways rather than going to all those different people to support them?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It is dependent upon the synchronicity involved and the type of schedule, so to speak, that creates in your life. Understand that you would probably have the time if you did not have to work so hard for your money.
So it all works out.
Yes. You follow me?
Okay.
One thing replaces the other in that way. Since you have created the idea that many of you must work to get the money in that way, then that is what takes up the time. In our situation, the exchange is simply more immediate.
But isn't it, I realize that, but it allows me the opportunity to do what I enjoy doing in one particular
Then that is why you are here. In this type of a society that has that type of symbol.
So,
And you are using it in that way. There is nothing wrong with it.
so when you go someplace else, you can vary the type of service that you provide. Is that what you
Of course.
Okay.
Understand that when each and every individual is acting in the now, each and every individual will find themselves able to provide many different services.
Yes,
Thank you. Recognize in this way, we are not saying that your system, your monetary symbolic system, and many other systems in your society are something that is negative intrinsically. We are not saying that you cannot and do not derive benefit from them. Simply recognize that they are all basically neutral symbols, and you decide what to make of them. So for you, you have decided you will utilize it in a positive way. And so, it gives you pleasure, and you find yourself creating pleasure with the interaction with those individuals who have provided service for you by supporting them through that symbol. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Sharing!
Bashar?
Yes.
During my class, the last class when I went into meditation and Thomas led us to this lake and I had an interaction with you. When I came out of it, so to speak, I didn't actually feel like I really had an interaction with you.
Correct.
And it was only when Dale brought it up that he too had the same kind of experience.
All right.
Somewhat acknowledged it. That I thought, oh, maybe it was Bashar. Oh, and maybe it was real. So I thought, well, I go into meditation again, and I go back to the lake. And again, I had an interaction with you, but I don't feel
All right.
the reality of it.
Understand, the idea, as we have always described it to you, is that our energy, our signature vibration, is always being sent to you. Now, if you find that you wish to form an identification, an association with what you are doing with us, then many times you will find that an individual in your society will form a simulacrum, a model, to represent our energy to themselves so that they understand they are dealing with that portion of themselves.
Mm-hmm. So when I have telepathic communication with you at the lake, is that just me imagining your responses? That's what I'm asking.
In a sense, yes, but that does not make it any less real of an interaction. Again, your imagination is a dimension of reality, simply on a different level. And in this way, you are interacting with us, you are interacting with another portion of yourself. Understand again, simply that your society has the predilection that it has to be this or that, whereas the idea is that it is this and that, and both are real and both are true, and the truth is composed of all truths. The interaction is as real as is valid for you on whatever level it is valid for you, because that is how it serves you to get you where you are going. There is no need to pick it apart and say, well, was it real in this way? Was it real in that way? There is no need for the labeling in that sense. Our energy is being offered for you in that way to make use of in whatever way you so desire. Your energy is always available to you. You do not need our energy, but you, from time to time, each and every one of you, will pick the symbols to represent the conversations you are having with yourself as you need them to let yourselves know that you are having the conversations with yourself on that level. Now, understand again, it is always coming back to you. Even the idea of what you call spirit guides are always luring you to yourself, an interaction with yourself. They do their job the best when they remain more or less unobtrusive in that way, so that they are not living your life for you, allowing you to feel that you have to have them or have to have me or us or someone else to get your answers, but that you allow us, through your willingness to form and utilize us as a symbol, you allow us to gently remind you that you are in a communication with the same level of yourself that you perceive us to be on. You follow me? Therefore, it allows you to understand you do not have to continue to make a differentiation between where you are and where you perceive we might be. For in this way, we are no better than you, we are simply different. And it is our pleasure to allow you to utilize us as a symbol in that way, as long as you know there is no need to rely upon us to live your life. And in this way, the interaction is both an interaction with you and an interaction with us, and both are real. And within our overall consciousness, the interaction you have when you utilize us as a symbol is stored and registered.
Okay. I have another question. I'm kind of confused about the relationship between different personalities of the same oversoul. I'm not quite clear on how you are a future self of Darryl.
All right. Again, there are many different ways to look at it, and in many ways, all of them are real. You can consider the idea, from your linear time dimension point of view, to simply be the idea that, let us say, Darryl will physically die and be reborn in your future, in my society as me. And my society, having the capability of going back and forth through time, will deign to speak through my own past self to you. Did you catch that? That is one way of looking at the idea. There are many other ways. Understand that also the idea of time, though it is real while you are in it, is from the oversoul point of view an illusion. And all of the different lives in that sense are all simultaneous, as you already understand.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that way, you can also look at it as a parallelity.
Okay, I understand. So why when someone asks you, have you ever had a life or an experience on Earth, you say no?
No, I say, except for the physical being sitting before you now.
Which you consider just as much a part of your experience as
Of
that.
course!
So this is Darryl's only incarnation?
No. Understand, the physical channel has his own series of lives. I have my own series of lives. This is the one in which we are connected and overlap. And for both of us in that way, therefore, while I have my own, so to speak, past, he is a part of it. While he has his own, so to speak, future, I am a part of that.
Is that because you created you now?
Yes. Because it serves the purpose of the interaction now.
Okay, so your relationship with Darryl parallels Carrie's relationship with her great-grandmother. If Carrie were to have a past life regression, could she possibly regress to see the experiences of her great-grandmother?
In a sense, she could. But understand, it is not quite the same idea. For in this way, there is much more intertwining by herself in that way. She can allow herself the opportunity to do so, but recognize that she is creating this particular manifestation to be within the same time track. Whereas the interrelationship, just to form the definition in specifics that you are looking for, between myself and the physical channel takes place in two different time tracks altogether.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it is similar in that way. And she could do that, yes. And understand, in a sense, she is doing that. And the idea of her grandmother's experiences throughout life did contain a few opportunities to experience certain cognitions that were not understood at that time to be communications from her own future self, now sitting next to you. You follow me?
Can you repeat that side?
All right.
Just the last sentence.
The idea, many times, I will put it in general terms, of when you are living your life, and sometimes when you get cognitions of something that you think is going to happen in that way, perhaps sometimes the idea, the experience you call deja vu, will be communications from your future self back to you. And in that way, when you then arrive at the time that you experience it, you will have an overlap sensation that you call a deja vu.
I see. Okay. You spoke with a friend of mine, Dorothy Boyle, the other day, and she is exploring her past life as King Solomon. And working.
Not really.
Not really?
We describe the idea of the identification to your friend in that way. It is not so much a literal idea, as it is an identification with a particular type of energy she is exploring within herself, and also connected to life in that time, and also connected to the energy of what you knew to be that individual. But it was not an individual that you could say any one individual now was totally, but rather many individuals now were together.
And she's one of those individuals?
Yes.
So why does she have to work through that past life? Why
She does
is
not.
that? She doesn't. It's just something she's creating because she wants to confront.
Understand that any connections you make in that way are being made in the present. Now, they do serve you at the time they are made, but recognize you always have the opportunity to know that if you can recognize, as we also discussed with your friend, the idea that you are, so to speak, working through something from a past life, recognize that you are doing it from a point of view that is already beyond the connection. For you are, in a sense, looking back. And in this way, you can recognize that simply by being where you are means, in a sense, you have already worked it through. If you are willing to look at it that way, you can actually have that effect in the present. It is not like you have to create a process, so to speak, although again, any process your imagination creates is valid for you and a part of the idea you chose to be. But you can also, at the same time, if you wish to, simply recognize that by having allowed yourself to create the life you are now in containing the idea of everything you have ever been, and simply acting as the being you find yourself to be now, just by living the life you are, you will automatically work everything through. You do not have to stop yourself from living to do it in a mode that feels like suffering.
Exactly.
You can simply live and draw from the knowledge and the experience of everything you have gained, and in that way, as you live in the moment, you will tap what you need to of the totality of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And apply it where necessary. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Bashar?
Yes.
I'd like to just point out an idea when you were talking about that there's not one individual you could say that was the incarnation of King Solomon, that many people are receiving that energy, that in the idea of time going backwards,
Right.
that everyone experiencing that energy actually is going backwards to the incarnation of King Solomon being able to be
Guys,
in that idea.
guys,
And
understand also, if I may interrupt you for one moment, that each and every individual who traces themselves back in that way will find themselves being their own aspect, their own version of that individual, understanding that even at that time, because that individual was a multiple aspect personality consciousness, there was more than one of him overlapping. Not that any particular reality experienced more than one, but there was a simultaneous psychic interaction on many different parallel worlds of the same individual in that way. And many individuals, because each individual is their own reality, is their own parallel world, is their own universe, will trace themselves back only to their own version of that entity, not anyone else's. You follow me?
one other idea that I wanted to share with you was at the pond, my experience was of the energy of your civilization or your planet, and I could not distinguish if it was you specifically, but I knew the vibration was of your civilization. That's all I could determine. Another thing that I can't seem to figure out, and I'd like to explore with you, if you would care to, is that the being that I was contacting or that I was in communication with, his ribs were vibrating, and there was something in the communication that I can't figure out. Can you tell me what that meant or what that symbology is?
All we can share with you at this time is that the idea of the energy that you will allow through yourself when you are willing to do so will feel a very supportive energy in that way, and as it manifests through your solar plexus, will embrace you in a very loving band of energy around your rib area and make you feel uplifted. You follow me?
Yes.
It is a symbolic identification with the type of energy that, when you allow it through yourself, will feel very supportive.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sharing.
Bashar?
Yes.
Another question. I spoke with you with regard to March 15th, this extreme pain in my solar plexus, and that had to do with pushing myself to my next stage. Well, I had it again. Is this me resisting progressive movement?
Only in a fundamental sense, but do not judge yourself for having remnants of judgment within you. Otherwise, you are compounding the idea.
Because consciously, I don't feel like I'm resisting it.
No.
So why am I getting this pain?
Understand, in this way, again, you are still viewing yourself as highly accelerated in that way. And this is, as we have said, during what you call your April month, one more highly accelerated activity time. And in this way, since you are still making the association to exist within a physical reality that still does have separation and judgment, you will, from time to time, as you feel the acceleration energy going through yourself, still feel some of the pain in that way. It will lessen as you acclimate. But you are still utilizing it as a barometer for your own progress, so to speak. So do not judge yourself. Allow it to flow. You can ease it. It does not have to be experienced as pain. Remind yourself of that idea that you have a choice to simply understand the reason for why the energy is going through you, and allow yourself to understand it does not have to manifest as a separation in that way, as pain.
Okay. Also, once a lot of people speak about opening their chakras when they're meditating.
Yes.
How does one open their chakras? Envision them open?
That is one way. If that works for you, it will do nicely.
What's another way that you can suggest?
I can suggest many different ways, but understand the way that your imagination says is yours is the way that will work for you. You can do anything at all in that way if you are applying what you are doing to the idea of opening your chakras. In that way, also understand, in a sense, it can be just as simple as allowing yourself to know they are open.
Exactly. Uh-huh.
Yes. It will have as many layers as you care to give it. Each will be valid, since you have chosen to do it in that way, and will represent the path you chose to be. And if you change your mind about how you wish to do it, then that is a part of the flow. Go with it. Now, understand, if you still request a suggestion, you can view yourself as an electromagnetic being, made of electromagnetic fluid, immersed in electromagnetic fluid. You can see the lines of electromagnetic force around you, through you, that create you to be an energy pattern, interwoven, intertwining, interacting. And in this way, allow yourself to see that all of these lines of so-called force, of movement, of action, of activity, of creation, are flowing unimpeded through you in a continuous cyclic motion of ease and creativity. Allow yourself to see yourself imbued with blue-white electromagnetic energy, and know that every single line of energy that courses through you, that forms the pattern of the being you happen to be, is always drawing from the central source of all that is for its own revitalization, and it brings that revitalization to you from that source every moment of time that you create to exist, and that you are constantly revitalized, constantly accelerated, and constantly balanced, allowing the material idea of yourself and the auric, etheric idea of yourself, the astral, and all the other levels of your existence to all be in harmonious synchronization through these lines of activity, knowing that the lines of communication, which is what they are functioning perfectly between all the different levels you have created yourself to be, so that you can sense consciously, physically, the blending that is taking place, and allow yourself not to create the idea of there being a stop-up or a block in any particular direction. And in this way, also remember that that which you perceive to be a block is not really a block. It is a sign that points in an unexpected direction. When you judge that this unexpected direction is not something that represents a part of your path, then it becomes a block. When you go, as the sign points, left or right, then that will be the way to go straight ahead. When you find yourself giving yourself a wall in that way, simply understand it is not there for you to beat your head against, but it is there to indicate that now is the time to turn, to go with the flow of yourself, left or right, and that turning, paradoxically, will be the way to go straight ahead most quickly. So allow the idea to flow, and you will not have to experience the unexpected as separation and pain. But you can experience it as integration and ecstasy. It can be the same energy. Anxiety and the pain of anxiety and separation is the same as the energy of ecstasy, except with a judgment put upon it. Thank you. Yes!
I've been told that I have guides, or that most of us have guides.
Yes.
Of what good is knowing that to me, or what would I do with that information?
You tell me. Has it served you? Understand, as we have already said, that guides are doing their job best when they lure you to yourself. So it is not like they have to be blatantly in your life. So if you find that you have the ability to have access to all the information that you require in your life and all the answers for every given situation that you are living, then in a sense, you are functioning as those guides would wish you to function, as your own best guide. You follow me?
Yes.
That is their primary purpose, to allow you to function as your own best guide. So if you are doing that already, there is not necessarily any need that you should symbolically recognize the fact that you have guides in physical terms. You follow me?
Is a guide something that I've known in a past life?
Oh, can be, yes. Sometimes individuals will take turns being other individuals' guides, one being non-physical, one being physical, taking turns, living lives in that way.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Bashar.
You.
Bashar, there was a
movie on TV the other night about a boy who had epilepsy.
Guys.
And they did a laser-like slit in the center of his brain to stop the epileptic seizure.
Guys.
Can you explain that in terms of how that same epileptic energy is experienced the way you were describing it with the channels the other day?
In this way, recognize that because the idea of epilepsy, as we have said, to some degree is similar to the channeling energy turned inward and not outward, it is allowing your scientists and medical personnel to focus on the idea of that energy in the brain. It is luring them to research the idea of how your brain works and translates your consciousness into physical terms. It is responsible for the idea of now the separation of different functions within the brain, but now will be responsible for the idea of the integration of the brain in that way. It is leading your scientists to begin to explore the idea of the neural pathways that are active within all portions of the brain, as opposed to going to the understanding of having to isolate a particular section. Though isolation will have been their first step, simply because isolation is the habit your civilization progresses on most usually. In this way, you will find it will come round about full circle, and the idea of the exploration of epilepsy will allow individuals to know that the idea of the splitting of the brain will draw their attention to the idea of the center of the brain in that way, not so much that they are then splitting it and looking at either half, but that if they reintegrate it and look at the interface between it, they will understand that that area called the corpus callosum is the interface and the source through which, and the net through which, and the matrix through which all is channeled into your physical reality from the non-physical. They will find the idea in the very center they have chosen to draw as the splitting line itself, not thinking that it carries within it the actual idea they are looking for. You follow me?
Yes. So is the split medically through the corpus callosum? Is that where the split is taking place?
More often than not, yes. It will be the separation, the unplugging of the communication from what has been described as the left and right hemisphere, although those are arbitrary labels, and you are beginning to understand that many things take place throughout the entirety of the brain and are not really isolated, so to speak, exactly in left and right hemispheres.
Okay, so if they're going through the black hole in the brain, are they doing a reversal in that black hole procedure?
In a sense. But what they are allowing themselves to understand is that is where they need to focus, but they are simply assuming that that line represents what will give them the opportunity to isolate the idea in one side or another, and are not yet realizing that it is that line in itself that represents the interaction that must take place between the two sides that will give them the source that they are seeking. In other words, it is, again, an example of the idea of attempting to stop a process in order to understand it, rather than allowing the interface, the line, to function as an interface so that they can see how the energy is translating into both sides of the brain. In other words, they are assuming, like what you call a diamond cutter, that the idea of cleaving a diamond, the idea of the line upon which the diamond is cleaved, is only good for the purpose of separation. Those cleaving lines in and of themselves are the definitive matrix of the existence of that diamond, and can lead them back to the template, the non-physical template upon which the idea of the structure is based. They are simply assuming that the only good the line represents is one of separation. They do not understand that lines are interfaces, are ideas and areas of interaction. You follow me?
Yes. Is this just a matter of timing before they will...
Yes. And some of your scientists have begun to move in that direction. There can be an entirely new study based upon not so much the sections into which they find or create the brain to be divided, but the divisions themselves that they have created. You follow me? The divisions, the lines that they have only been using as conveniences to say, well, look at section A and look at section B, will in and of themselves begin to take on the aspect that it is the dividing line that gives birth to section A and birth to section B, and therefore all that they are looking for in the isolated sections can be found blended in the dividing line itself. You follow me?
That's fascinating. Thank you.
Recognize that as you create these black hole cellular structures, you will find that if you were to remove all the sections you have now categorized, there would be the idea of a very thin, lattice-work, shell-like, paper-like structure that in and of itself is the extension of that central dividing corpus callosum line. That membrane is in and of itself an entirely different type of an approach, a different understanding of how information is processed in the brain. And you will then find that there will be people in your society who will begin to explore that portion of the brain almost as if they are actually exploring the bones of the brain, so to speak, rather than the body of the brain. You follow me?
So they're exploring more like the blueprints than the other.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. As if it would be that someone living in a house, as you call them, would begin to explore the idea that much goes on in the walls that divide the rooms. Everything that supports the house goes on in the walls that divide the rooms in which you live. You follow me?
And yet we never see between those walls and the room.
Until you have to go in digging after it because the room you are living in is too hot or too cold, or something is not to your liking. Understand that these ideas of epilepsy and many related diseases in that way are giving you the opportunity to dig further and further until you come to the very structure out of which those ideas manifest. It is not so much within the body of the brain, but within the structure that supports the body. Thank you.
Would that be a physical structure of the brain, Bashar?
Yes, it has a physiological counterpart. And then the step from that will be to understand it has a non-physiological counterpart, a template.
Yeah.
Just as your house has a blueprint.
How does that relate to my dad's a neurosurgeon, and he said for quite a few years a lot of the leading edge neurosurgeons have understood that there are no, as far as they can tell, local areas of the brain that you can ascribe left and right behavior
Correct.
to, that feelings are located in one area, and if you just erase that, it'll stop a tremor or feelings, and he said it's really holographic.
Yes, exactly.
And he said exploring in the way that you're talking about trying to cut off certain areas of the brain is like trying to determine why is the light working, walking over to the light switch and knocking it out with a sledgehammer and
Correct.
saying, look, we've located the cause of the light, and completely overlooking the fact that the light is tied into the whole electrical system and that goes all the way back to the water system.
It is, in your terms, synergistic.
Yeah, and he said there's no way you can, that it's holographic, and
Right.
they also have a lot of studies that show people have lost up to 90% of their neocortex,
Yes.
and have still been able to retain all the language and
Yes.
motor functionings of the brain. So
What you can begin to understand is that the central dividing structure will be what we refer to in our society as a flash matrix. It will be something that acts as a translation membrane, permeable to any portion of the brain, and allows certain ideas to manifest in certain sections according to the purposes being served. So it is not so much that an idea that is discovered to be functioning within a particular portion of the body of the brain in one instance has to function there all the time if the purpose is different.
Right.
The matrix can allow it to function wherever it needs to function to serve the purpose being served.
So I am kind of on the edge here. I'm not quite sure what would be explored to take the next step to understand this. I'm not sure if it's an actual physical structure or...
You can begin that way if you wish, but you can also understand it as an energy relationship. There can be, in your terms, mathematics and equations to define that idea.
Okay.
The idea of how the membrane, what you call the corpus callosum, acts as a permeable membrane, allowing both hemispheres to interface, can be a step.
Okay, and would it be biochemical or electrical?
It will be all of them.
Okay.
Understand, as you create your consciousness to exist in physical reality, you will create all the physiological symbols to go along with it, so that from any particular point can you trace it back. Whether you are biochemically oriented or electrically oriented, or whatever avenue you have taken upon yourself to be your point of view.
Yes. One more question. Does the, I don't quite how to say this, the word, does the brain actually create its own structure from its own template?
Yes and no. Understand that it is a self-feeding system to some degree, and that once your consciousness interjects the template into physical reality, there will be an automatic growth in that way that, in your terms, controls the way the cells move and structure themselves. There is a type of physiological consciousness that also, in your terms, takes a hand in the patterning of that idea, and once it is formed, does lend a hand in continuing to support that idea and recreate itself, let us say, as an electromagnetic consciousness, yes, but it is always supported from the non-physical consciousness that you are.
Yes. I have another question that relates to the 14th and 15th February. Leah was talking about an idea about that when we open up, and I don't know why she put it in either or terms. She said you either learn to love and accept more and more and more of all that is,
Right.
or you learn to love yourself more than anything else, and that is called service to the self. And could you expand on that, please?
Simply in this way, what was being defined is that if you recognize that being of service to all that is automatically allowing yourself to be taken care of, then you have blending that will accelerate you to the understanding of your higher existence within fourth density. Taking the approach of feeling like you need to serve yourself first is actually paradoxical to truly loving yourself in that way.
Right. That's right.
For if you know that you love yourself unconditionally, then you take it for granted that you are taken care of in that way and can simply be of service to all that is.
Right. And isn't also really understanding all of yourself is understanding that everything that you think, see, perceive, and feel is yourself.
In that way, yes. Simply what was being said is that to be overly concerned with the idea of feeling like you must protect yourself in that way is not really allowing yourself to be supported by all that is, because you are not supporting it. You follow me?
I think so. And I don't know why it's not gelling in my brain.
Simply the idea of service to self in that way is being overly concerned that you, by being of service to all that is, are not automatically supported.
Okay, here's my confusion. As I understand self is seeing myself as this here, what's sitting here talking right now, and at my full understanding is understanding I'm connected to everyone in this room.
All right.
Okay, so when I hear someone saying that you'll love yourself more than anything else is an immediate creation of separation of understanding.
No, not in that way. It is a description of how you apply that understanding. In other words, if you know that you do love yourself unconditionally, as all that is loves you in that way, then you are no longer concerned with focusing the attention of how to apply that towards you, but outwardly.
Got it.
Does that clarify the idea?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Bashar.
You, then you.
Just recently I went to a seminar on creativity where neurosurgeons were talking about the brain
All right.
as a gland, and this is a new...
In a sense, it is, in a sense, a master gland. It is not so much an organ in the same sense as what you would call your bodily organs are processing, let us say, on a secondary level, the ideas that support your existence, whereas your glandular system will be more closely connected to the actual electrochemical activity and not so much the biochemical activity.
And another idea that I'm working on today is, can you comment a little bit more about the events that occurred today in Libya?
Yeah.
Not really so much more than what we have already shared with you about the idea of allowing such interactions to come to the surface rather than being covert. To give yourself the opportunity to now interact with your government as a portion of the government and not as something ostracized from that idea. So that you can tell them, without judging them, without accusing them, but with your unconditional love, you can share with them that you prefer peace and have faith that the idea of peace will be what will allow you to function within strength, and not the idea in that way of needing to function on the same level as somebody you are saying robs other individuals of their power by doing the same thing. You follow me? In that way, understand that if you truly find that an idea is worth believing in, you do not have to defend it in that way. Otherwise, you are saying that you do not believe it is strong enough to manifest upon the earth for its own sake. You follow me?
You're referring to peace?
Yes. The idea that you find that someone in your world might be playing the idea of forcing their point of view on someone else, you can understand that you do not prefer, in your terms, to condone that particular type of action, but recognize that by reacting in the same manner, you are only perpetuating the same idea. In other terms, in other clothes. If you truly, in this way, say that you believe in the idea of peace, then acting in a peaceful manner in that way, if you truly believed in it, would have far more effect and far more power than all of the weaponry that exists upon your planet. And you would be able to actually see that power in effect if you truly believed that it had power and did not need to be defended by forcing the idea of other people into the subjugation of your point of view. Understand that as long as you, as a society, find that you are choosing to, in your terms, fight fire with fire to those whose point of view you do not agree with, you will only be continuing to attach yourselves to them in the way that you say you do not want to be attached. You follow me? In this way, also, as we have said, it is not even a matter of judging. For again, you do not get peace by hating war. You get peace by loving peace, by acting, by being peaceful, fulfilled of peace, and taking it upon yourselves the initiative to act individually and or collectively, to allow all of the governments upon your planet, which are only extensions of you, to know that there are many ways you can share, and that anyone who feels they must push their point of view, no matter who it is, upon someone else, obviously does not truly believe in the power of their point of view. If you share this with the individuals that are fighting, they may begin to let it sink in that if they feel they must defend their point of view, then in this way perhaps they themselves can come to some understanding about how much they really do believe or don't believe in what they themselves are saying. You follow me?
Yes.
There will still continue, as we perceive it at this time, to be an acceleration of some of this interaction. Many other factors will come into play before this month is out. The more quickly you allow yourselves to become a part of the action in a peaceful way, by communicating not only with your own governments, but with all governments. This is your world. You don't have to stop at your borders. They are arbitrary designations. The more you communicate with all of the governments that you are, that you prefer peace, the more and the sooner you will let them know they do not have to maintain the charade. You follow me? For in this way, They are only thinking that they are reflecting what they think you want. They think you want to be protected. You are putting them in the position of believing they have to act as your protectors because you have given responsibility for the creations of your lives over to them. Take the responsibility back and you will relieve them of that burden and allow them to be natural. You follow me? They will, when you allow them to wake up into their own self-empowerment, be eternally grateful. Does that clarify the idea to some degree for now?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Yes?
Oh, that you just, there's my question.
All right.
Sure.
You then you.
She was first, so.
If you say so.
Well, I was just continuing what her question was about Libya. I feel a little confused as far as the idea of, I know a lot of people are thinking this might be a prerequisite to war, and I'm confused as far as what you're saying as far as that idea.
Do you believe that the interaction between what you call your country and their country must lead to war? Or do you believe that some understanding can come from this?
I definitely believe that an understanding can come from this.
Then, within your own imagination, as you conceive of what that understanding might be, of what shape it might take, act upon it, and you will make a difference. We cannot stress enough that each and every single one of you make a difference. Act as the full being you have been created to be, and you will see that difference in your reality. You follow me?
Well, have you stated, from your perspective, if you felt this was just another idea being expressed, or if it was something having to do with war, or was something just...
You are not going to, in our perception, have what you call nuclear annihilation, if that is what you are talking about.
Right. Well, to me, annihilation doesn't necessarily mean the same thing as war.
You may understand that in your strictest technical terminology, you have already had war with them. You are having a war right now. It is not something that is going to happen. You are in the middle of it. Now, war is also only one type of exchange. Transmute and transform the exchange into a positive one by your willingness to act in a positive manner. Now that the lines of communication are open, no matter if they be negative, utilize them in a positive way. Send your thoughts, send your love, not only to them, but to your own governments, because you are your governments. Act like a being who exists in a world where communication will make a difference. Then it will. All right?
Sure. When you mentioned earlier about serving all that is serving oneself. Serving all that is doing what excites one. Could you clarify?
Being true to yourself,
right.
Doing what excites you in service to other individuals in that way, allowing them to partake of the gift that you are, and allowing them to serve you in return, automatically.
How could you do anything else?
Well, understand, intrinsically, you can. You are always serving other people. The idea is to allow yourself to consciously know that, so that you will not feel that the service has to be in negative manifestation.
Negative manifestation being...
judgment and separation.
I see. Let's see, I had another question. I can't remember it. I'll come up later.
You sure?
Yes.
I have some confusion here.
Oh, that is all right. Understand again, the ideas of what you call depression and confusion are not necessarily negative. They are simply confusing and withdrawing to the center of yourself where you know the answers lie. Confusing, confusion, allows you to unlock disorient from one reality so that you can reorient to a new understanding of yourself. Nothing necessarily negative about confusion.
Right. I feel that way.
All right.
So maybe together we can explore and get to my center and
All
have
right.
some clarity.
Maybe.
Firstly, when at the beginning of this month, when we all started discussing all doing something and taking action and making a difference.
Right.
I did some things, and I did some things doing things.
All
and
right.
also did some inward things,
Right.
exploring my own fears and feelings and
All
angers,
right.
which might be contributing to war. Now, my feeling today was when I heard that there was an attack, I felt, okay, I'm exploring. Maybe there's some places I haven't found in me, but I find it hard to believe that there's not one person that loves the idea of peace enough to have created peace. Because from what I understand, it will only take one. It only needs one, and I can't believe
All right.
there's not one of us.
Now understand this idea. Each and every one of you is your own complete reality. Right now, the definition of the reality that you are sharing, that you are agreeing to share, because this is, let us say, in the middle of the transformation, is one that allows you to still be able to perceive all of the different ways people are perceiving their world to be. The further you accelerate towards fourth density reality, the more specialized your particular viewpoint will create your reality to be. And all the individuals you will experience in your reality will all be reflections of what you choose to be. Understand, as many individuals, so to speak, not to be contradictory, but in your language it may not make much sense, all the individuals on your world, every single one of them, the countless billions in that way, each and every one of them is right now their own complete, potential, true, quote-unquote, reality future. Possible, probable future. Each and every one of them will experience the future they choose to be. Every single one of them. Now, let us say, hypothetically, if every single individual upon your planet chose to experience a different future, you all would. The idea, however, is that many of you will choose to have different futures that share similar qualities. And so you will agree to interact within a certain range of experience that will allow all of you to feel you are in the same future. But you are not. By strictest definition. You are all in your own future, your own present.
Bashar, with something you're just saying of being at peace and at war, I feel peaceful and I don't feel I'm at war with Libya.
All right.
Is that...
Then you are not getting blown up, are you?
No. And I mean, the idea being that most of us in the room, I assume, are not at war with Libya. I mean,
all right.
Varying degrees of peace.
Gaddafi can have my dinner at my house anytime.
All right. Perhaps someday we shall.
So, if you accept the fact that others might feel that they're at war with a country, or
allow them and allow yourself to know that there is no need to judge that they have that point of view, and by your willingness to unconditionally love them as they are and reflect that to them, that is what will allow them the opportunity to look at you and see reflected in you the opportunity to choose peace for themselves as well.
Bashar, are you saying that the limitations of mass consciousness are being expanded?
In a sense.
So that there are more opportunities?
Yes. As creative as you are willing to be, within integrity and unconditional love, the opportunity is open to you. Act on it. If you can imagine it, do it. If it serves all that is and allows you to be a reflection of the peace you know exists in your particular world.
Has this unlimited, has this capacity for unlimited action always been there?
Of course.
And why hasn't anyone moved in the direction?
Understand you are. And understand that your unlimited capacity for creation is what has allowed you to create a reality in which you can experience limitation. Understand that you are always using 100% of yourself, even if you are using 90% to create the illusion that only 10% of you is functional. You follow me?
It's therefore possible for all the billions of beings that exist on this planet to theoretically choose futures that are so wildly divergent that in fact there is no commonality between us?
It is possible, yes. However, your energy, your mass consciousness, and the purposes for which you generally all agreed to be on Earth to begin with make it, let us say, unlikely. You can change the scenario if you wish, but you have a great deal of energy and momentum behind the idea that you will generally move together in a general way towards the idea of higher understanding, peace, and harmony.
You once said that we could choose to create by virtue of our belief anything that we so desire, providing it fell within the limitations
of the general agreement. Yes.
So now it's just a broader consensus. More is possible.
Yes, more is possible. Now, each and every one of you may allow yourselves the opportunity during your break to feel within yourselves the potential for all that takes place in your world to be felt within yourself immediately, and for what you feel within yourself to have an effect on all that takes place within your world instantaneously.
Would you repeat that, please?
No. Oh, all right. During your break, as you, quote-unquote, refresh yourselves, allow the refreshment you are taking in to also expand outward from each and every one of you and fill the world with refreshment, so that you know that what you feel personally as you view yourself in your own personal relationship to all that you see taking place in your world, you can also extend your beingness, your consciousness outward, so that the whole world you are in contact with also feels the individuality of your reality, and can choose that for themselves, to share that with you, to refresh themselves if they desire. All right.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you all. You may all take a short break. All right, I'll say sharing. You, then you.
I still have questions about Libya and this situation. I feel when I'm in this room with this group of people, we can talk to each other about how we see the situation on our side and how we would prefer it to be. And yet, I can just talk to any one of my acquaintances in my business, and their point of view makes a lot of sense.
Of course, it is valid for them. Understand, the idea is not to convince someone of your point of view, nor that they have to adopt it, simply that you are sharing it as your point of view.
I was wondering if you could suggest, just to say that we prefer peace and peaceful solutions just seems to elicit responses of, well, that's naive, because if you just sit around and be peaceful, then they're going to go on being terrorists. And why should we sit around while they blow up people around the planet? We have to do something. And I don't know how I feel.
What is naive?
they think that one isn't aware of political realities, quote unquote.
Now, understand that it may be that many individuals in that way are choosing to view an individual, in your case, in this way, let us say, such as yourself, as being naive, because they have their own definition of what they think reality is, and they think everyone agrees with it. Mm-hmm. They are formulating that there is a real background that is the same for everyone, against which all viewpoints can be measured. You can allow them to understand that, in a sense, according to what your own physicists now know, to assume that there is a definitive, solid background against which all viewpoints can be measured is a naive point of view. For in this way, recognize that simply, again, not meaning to attack in that way, but that you can allow them to know that not everyone thinks as they do about what reality means.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Share the idea that it is because they believe that there is a steadfast so-called background reality that they think their situation needs to be reactive instead of active. That they feel that the structure of physical reality is something rigid out of which they cannot break beyond a certain point. And that is what allows them to experience the situation as they are again and again and again.
In this specific incident, is there a specific way we could see it differently so that we could act instead of react? I mean, in the sense that...
Do you have any examples in your history at all of individuals who were willing to act as peace more than willing to react as war?
Yes, Gandhi.
All right. All right. Then in this way, if you know that all it takes is one individual to make a difference in the reality you perceive, then act like that individual. Choose your model to determine the reflection of the reality you experience. Mm-hmm. If a model is what you need, understand that their viewpoint that you are naive is only because they are choosing models to pattern themselves after that do not have a belief in the option in other realities.
Yes, I mean, I'm not talking to people who believe that you create your own reality.
All right, but again, understand, the purpose is not to convince them otherwise. Mm-hmm. If they choose to view, in their opinion, that you are naive, so what? It is an opportunity for you to decide whether you truly believe what you are saying or not, and to stick with it or change it.
Yes.
That is the purpose they are serving for you. Mm. Are you truly experiencing conviction in your belief, or do you choose to doubt what you know to be true for you?
I choose to doubt when I'm talking to them.
All right. Then since you know you are making that choice, you can choose something else if you prefer it. Thank you.
Bashar.
One moment. Guys? Then you.
Bashar, my sister was supposed to come here to see me, and she couldn't.
Supposed to?
Well, I mean, she was planning on coming.
All right.
And she's an opera singer, and she's very talented, and she's very good, but she gets sick all the time. She always gets these sinus infections that then it blocks off her nasal passage, and she can't sing high notes or anything. And she's here in Long Beach doing a job, and she's already missed a week of rehearsal because she's been so ill. and I was wondering if you could enlighten me on anything to advise her as to why she's saying that.
Does she have anything blue?
Anything?
Yes.
Yes.
Something that she can look at as a color and allow herself to imagine that blue as being energy.
Yes.
Then suggest this. Tonight of her time, be flower in that way. Communicate this right now as well as contacting her later, all right? Mm-hmm. Through your own consciousness, visualize her receiving the information. Look at that blue color. Feel herself to be immersed in that energy. Allow her to see a doorway in the middle of her sinus cavity, a doorway from the sinus into the brain. Allow it to be open. Allow there to be no door that can close, but allow it to be an open conduit, a tunnel, to the very center of her brain, and then down through the throat to the very center of her solar plexus, up through the heart, up through the throat, into the center of the brain, deflecting into the sinus cavity. Allow there to be an open pathway. See herself as she is immersed in that blue energy, breathing it in through her nose, through her mouth, into that tunnel, into the brain, down through to her solar plexus, up again and out into her auric field, into her electromagnetic field, allowing there to be a balance of the vibration she knows herself to be becoming. Allow her also to allow a doorway and a tunnel to go from the center of the brain, connecting into this tunnel we have already described, up to the top of her head and out, so that there is a releasing of the pressure in the internal systems within her. So there is an equalization of the pressure of her auric field in which she is immersed and the internal pressures of her body and all the different chakra points. All right? Allow her to breathe freely as she is going to sleep of this energy and to relieve herself of the difference in the pressure that she has created in the outside and the inside worlds. Allow her to balance the pressure systems, much the same way that what you call one of your air vehicles in this way can allow there to be the balancing of external and internal pressures in this way, to allow there not to be a strain against the skin that holds everything in and keeps everything out. So there is an equalization and a smoothness of flowing that will allow her to attain any height, any depth, in any liquid, any medium, any atmosphere, dense or total vacuum. This is allegorical, but will suffice. Allow also her to understand that there is a stream, a level of energy which she may tap into in her dreams starting tonight of her time, and she may begin starting tonight of her time to have cognizance of the interactions taking place within those levels and allow them to become her physical reality and not to create such a separation between her dream self and her physical self. Equalize the pressure of the differences between the dream reality and the physical reality as well. She will find herself becoming very, very active. Very active. She will accelerate in ways that will allow her to expend that energy and utilize that energy in many different ways. And it will all equalize and balance so that no matter at what level, so to speak, she finds herself to be, she will already find the major portion of herself to exist there already. So she will have assistance as she needs it to exist on any level, and will not have to struggle to reach or attain a particular height or a particular depth. Equalizing the pressure. All right? Repeat this idea. Verbatim.
Wait, I have a question. Connie, her sister, was doing a particular yoga stance and was looking at her third eye in the mirror and saw herself disappear.
All right.
Can you explain that at all?
Can you?
In a particular way? Not offhand, other than she was allowing herself
right.
to completely become one with her whole environment. And she didn't see herself as a separate entity from it. As it.
And
what?
And become transparent to herself. Allowing the inside and the outside to be the same thing. The idea of the sinus connected to the third eye activity in that way. Becoming clairvoyant about your own life. Allowing the path to be clear. To become transparent to yourself. Allowing the inner and the outer to blend. That is the symbol, yes. Thank you. Yes.
Well, all this evening, this analogy that you shared with me, I wanted to express to the people here, and it has to do with. I want to start by saying when I was a child, my parents would always say to me, like when I was just old enough to vote, they would say, "Go out and vote because it makes a difference." And I would sit at home. And, the polls, it would be a landslide for one president. And I would say, now, if I went out, it would make a difference. There was millions of votes difference. But...
Yes, it would make a difference.
Well, okay, just a second.
I know. And I am not chiding him.
No, you're not.
Okay.
You're not. And that's what I realized. That was what was so wonderful was when you had said to me that if you take a cube and you change one side of that cube, it is a different cube. It is not the same cube with another color.
Correct.
It is a different cube, and it literally is a different world.
Yes.
If you make that choice for yourself.
Yes.
And
that is how it counts.
Right. One other thing. I'm living my life, and I want to share one small aspect with everyone here. A couple days ago, I was driving on the freeway about 5:30 in the morning, and I'm listening to a wonderful tape of a medium, and I look in the rearview mirror, and there's this motorcycle cop with his red lights blinking. And this is like one of the first times that I didn't see him coming up. He was right there, and I didn't even realize I was speeding. I was so engrossed in what I was doing. And I wasn't identified. I didn't get an adrenaline rush. This is the first time I didn't get an adrenaline rush. And the freeway off-ramp was about an 1/8 mile away. So I just drove until the off-ramp, and I get off. And and I was really loving with this officer. And he comes up to me, and he wanted to kill me. He literally, he was very negative, and he was upset that I got off the freeway. He says, "What nerve you have getting off the freeway? Who do you think you are?" And then he said, "I'm writing you up for going 80 miles an hour." And I felt like a victim. I really did, because I felt like, I said, "Why are you mad at me?" And that's when he said I was going 80. And so anyways, I left there, and I said to myself, what is this symbol for me? And I realized that I'm accelerating at a pace that I'm unaware of.
All right. Very good.
So anyways, leading from that, I just want to say that my life literally changed from that ticket, from what I learned from it. I don't want to go into that now, but because I was willing to explore what my higher self is teaching me in everything in my life, that I'm getting a lot of mileage out of it.
Very good. Thank you for your sharing. A most arresting tale.
Moving right along.
Thank you. Sharing.
All right,
All right.
I had a very interesting dream last night. It was a very strange UFO dream. And I was in this house, and all of a sudden I felt this really strong vibrating energy, and it was like I knew. All of a sudden I went outside, and there was this UFO, but it was a very funny looking UFO. It was like a round, ball, and it had a big funnel sticking out of it.
All right.
And it was kind of moving around, and that funnel part was kind of moving around. And there was lots of silvery, balloonish, not bigger than the UFO things all behind it. And as I looked at it, I felt the energy again, and I said, Darryl, come here quick! So I was like going out the side of my mouth because I was afraid that I was going to make it go and he wouldn't see it. And so he came out and we looked at it. And that was about the end of the dream. And the thing that's most unusual is the shape of the, very unexpected to think. But I knew that's what it was. I just didn't know what purpose was doing that.
You knew that's what it was? Are you sure?
Yes.
Absolutely 100% positive.
Positive.
Where did it come from?
I don't know where it came from. I can make a guess.
All right, go ahead, make a guess.
But it doesn't make any sense for it to come from there. Okay.
Yes, that's correct. Then what is your next guess?
Then it didn't come from there.
That's not a guess.
Okay, my next guess would be Zeta Reticuli.
No. Now, understand in this way, the idea was your perception of what some individuals have perceived as UFO, but in this way is actually a projection of consciousness, and it was your consciousness. It was your oversoul, and all the silver bubbles were all your different lives.
Well, what's the funnel business?
You're channeling into the different lives from the oversoul.
Big ball funneling into the little ball.
Yes. The extension of the oversoul that blows and creates out of that extension all the silver bubbles of the lives that you experience and surround yourself with and do the dance.
So that was why then I felt the energy.
Yes.
It was a very vibrating energy.
Yes. In this way, recognize that many UFOs are projections of exactly that type of consciousness into your physical reality and are perceived as glowing spheres of light.
Isn't that what Young's theory of what UFO is, and that sort of jive with that?
Yes.
That
it is projection of consciousness. Now, there are all types.
Right, I was curious.
Yes.
Can two portions of the same oversoul exist in the same time frame?
Yes, they are called counterparts.
And so they wouldn't necessarily be twins or anything?
No. You may never meet them. When you meet them, you may not like them. Or you may. It's up to you. Erica.
Yeah.
Does that answer?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
There will be that we perceive the idea, tomorrow being the day of the halfway mark of your month of April, in what you call the second half, more acceleration, and in this way, more regular appearances by your friend.
Through you?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Not tonight, though, huh?
No. It is before the halfway mark.
Guess you're gonna have to show tomorrow.
There will be first opportunity, no guarantee, in what you call Wednesday night of your time, and then also next Monday night of your time. For the communication in that way that will represent the acceleration of your energy. And pay attention. The idea of allowing for that communication bridge to come through will be directly proportional to the degree you are willing to act as the beings you know yourselves to be. Guys, in a sense, you may view it as my own higher self. 'Tis consciousness from that civilization you would call the star Sirius. You follow me?
Was higher self not future self?
Can be same thing.
Well, you channeled your higher self once. That was a different experience.
It was a different aspect of the whole idea. It was the crystalline consciousness. You may refer to it as a future self if you wish. Understand that from its point of view. It is all quite arbitrary. No.
Why, is there a reason why it's deciding to channel through you rather than just be channeled through us?
In this way, what you are always experiencing, you will experience perhaps in that way as simply to pop through the physiological channel of Darryl. In the same way you experience my consciousness. But recognize it is always coming through me in that sense because of the terminology that you have made it to be my future self and myself being Darryl's future self. There will always be the manifestation of the third identity that you will perceive in that way on all the different levels simultaneously, and then the creation of the construction of the fourth identity inwardly, and also the fifth manifestation, the one you create for yourselves to experience. Did you get that?
Is that...
Well, wait a minute. Could you repeat that, please?
Simply that there is... Would you like to explain it?
He's saying it's like, does Chapat have to come through him, first of all, because of the energy exchange? And then you understand the idea about when he comes through Darryl and they make a third personality. So that makes the fourth personality is that interaction. What's the fifth? Our creation, our perception of that personality. Yeah.
Guys, the fourth is the one that is experienced, in a sense, inwardly by the channel.
Right, exactly.
The fifth is the one you choose to create of the third identity.
No. Okay. Yeah, you said that you've made a connection with Darryl, that being your only past life on Earth, even though Darryl has his own past life. Now, is Chapat, does he have a connection with Darryl, or is there no connection except through you then, in that way? Is that what you're saying? That Darryl is not one of Chapat's past lives?
It is not connected in exactly the same way, no.
So it would be the higher self, like when I think I'm talking to my higher self, when I'm asking myself questions, it's kind of like more, I guess in a way, the over picture of your complete self.
In a sense.
Rather than
but in a specific way. That is what was referred to as the future self, which is a specific version of the idea of the higher self.
So are you conscious of what this higher self quote is saying to us while it's coming out?
Oh, yes.
Do you interact both you too? I mean, can you change and you start talking and then Chapat start talking?
Yes. Now, also understand in that way that there are many dimensions of the experience going on, quote unquote, on my level as well at the same time. And for me, there is also the idea of the different variations of the interactions that create a whole scenario, one aspect of which is what you are experiencing as your entire scenario. Did that come through? All right. My inward experience, what we have described as the fourth identity, the one that occurs inside the channel, you follow me? That total experience within me is what is my interaction with you, to me.
What it represents for you.
The entire interaction that you perceive to be taking place between us is that one inward bubble of experience for me while I am in communication with my future self. Now, understand that what that means is the interaction that is channeling inward to the physical channel, Darryl, is penetrating into another dimension of experience and communicating with other entities as well. In other words, as a consciousness, Darryl is also speaking through someone somewhere else, as I am speaking through him to you, as Chipop is speaking through me to us. Because the fourth identity inward is the one that penetrates through the doorway within each of us, down, so to speak, not in a derogatory manner, to the next level that requires that type of interaction in their own terms. So for each and every one of us that is in that way the channel, the inward experience also becomes the outward experience for another group of entities in some other dimension of experience.
Would Darryl be channeling to the Bernard side?
Oh, very good.
Well, thank you.
There and other places.
Can someone be channeling, such as myself, in other places?
Yes.
Without being
aware of it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
As a constant worker on it.
That is.
Is Darryl aware of it?
We just told him. Now, in the idea of the dream reality, yes, you are all aware of it. Now, it is a new understanding, the way the levels interact, the way the doorways interpenetrate each other. And it is one more understanding of the multidimensional aspect of each and every one of you. For understand, this is partly an analogy for why it has been said that what you perceive to be stars are manifestations of other levels of consciousness, leaking, so to speak, into your reality. Your thoughts, your emotions, and your consciousness in that way to other entities, in a sense, can also be their stars.
They're perceiving energy.
Yes.
Is astral projection to the idea of channeling, as far as you said how you can channel yourself somewhere else?
Not by your definitions. In this way, it is mostly the idea of the projection of your consciousness without relationship to what you call your physiological form in time and space. It is what seems to be the personality you consider yourself to be existing without your body, but perceiving in the same manner, so to speak, that you would perceive if you were physically present at the location your senses now occupy. You follow me?
When Chipop comes through you and then down through Darryl, is that interaction because you're connected to Chipop, or is that interaction simply because it's serious energy and because it's...
Well, both. My particular manifestation of my cognizance is connected to the idea of the particular manifestation of Chapal. I am making a definition in the same way, to some degree, that you make your definitions. And I am making them for you in those terms so that you understand it as an identity.
I guess I'm wondering is then it's not just because Chapal's connected with Sirius that he needs a go-between. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, there is no need for the go-between in that way, but that is what serves the idea I have of myself and the idea the channel has of himself, and the idea you all have of yourselves. Understand, there is direct communication as well many times, although it is not perceived many times as communication, but it is perceived as your imagination, as visions, as emotions, as attitudes. You follow me?
Who decides when Japop comes through? Is that totally up to Japop, or is that a...
It is up to the idea of the combined timing of the interaction of all of us together, including you, for when it best serves you.
Do you think stars are consciousnesses coming through from other levels to us?
Everything is consciousness. There is a physiological, in your terms, reason for the existence of a star that you do not perceive to be connected to consciousness, but it is also a reflection of different levels of consciousness penetrating into your system. There are consciousnesses in that way attached to those phenomena. You follow me?
Yes, did we at one time on this planet know that, and that's how the system of astrology started? That we think that the stars...
It is one of the aspects that makes that connection in an archetypal manner. Yes, very good. Yes.
You're talking about, as you're talking about feelings and attitudes, I was wondering about something that occurred to me a couple of days ago. Do we generate thought, or are we processing vibrations of thought?
Thoughts are vibration in physiological electromagnetic terms. They are the vibrations that are reflections of patterns of consciousness in physical terms.
So we're not creating them?
Yes, you are.
We're choosing them or creating?
What is the difference?
Well,
you are the creator. As you choose, so you create. You have created the idea of a medium, the electromagnetic atmosphere, in which a consciousness can have a model of itself represented by what you call a thought. It is a model. A thought is a model for consciousness in physical terms.
Is that something we become sympathetic to? Since it's already a part of all that is, we just become sympathetic to that vibration and then appreciate it?
It is not that the vibration exists without you. You create it, but because you think you do not, then you feel you have to become sympathetic with it as a reflection. But understand, you create the vibration to begin with, and if you do not recognize that you created it to begin with, then in order to associate with it, you might see it as an echo bouncing back to you outside so that your senses can pick it up and develop a sympathy with it.
Is that what we're all doing in this room right now?
Yes.
Is it a creation or as much as an acceptance or a tuning into?
Right.
Everything's existing at once. We're not adding anything to it. We're just perceiving other parts of it as a needle on a record.
But the perception
is the creation.
Right.
I understand.
Point of view
I understand
is a creation.
Right.
And we're also the event.
Right.
But it's not an addition. It's the creation, but it's not an addition. It's just a perception of something, which is... Isn't that what you said?
Yeah. In a sense, yes, it is not so much an addition as you mean it. And yet, because each and every one of you is unique, the way you are perceiving in this now moment is a new now moment. And creating there to be a new now moment, which in a sense can be looked at as an addition, but paradoxically, the total volume of all that is does not change.
Right, got it.
Thank you.
Bashar?
Yes.
Is there an analogy physiologically to the sympathetic nervous system and what we're talking about, like
Yes, there is. Although we will find that as we are scanning The majority of the terminology necessary to describe that to you does not exist within the physical channel's memory.
However, if I were to take what you just said and look up what I know about the sympathetic nervous system,
You can find the connection, yes. It does exist.
Bashar?
Yes.
You've told me in the past to have exciting dreams, and a couple nights ago I had a reoccurring dream 3 times in one night.
All right.
Wow.
And it had to do with something with like a television transmission signal, like a microwave or something like that.
All right.
And that's about the only thing I remember about the 3 dreams. Can you tell me?
That is the only thing you remember?
Well, there was other people around, but
No,
that's
well,
the important part.
important part? Part? Important part? The dream is a total thing. What else was there besides the people? Anything about them that you care to remember in particular? Anything else besides them you care to share?
It had to do with communications, I believe.
All right. What else?
Determination?
All right. Is that a question?
Yes, I'm not too sure.
Well, make it a statement and see how it feels.
It feels good.
All right. What else? While you are pondering that idea, did you have a question? Would you care to share that?
I will, and I don't know if there's any correlation.
You don't have to know it. Share.
Just a few nights ago, I dreamed that I was in a boat.
All right.
And I was traveling with some other people, and at some point in time, I'd reached a point that was as far as I could go consciously. And at that point, I and the other people on the boat were blindfolded and taken further.
All right.
Airlifted out of the water on the boat and transported to another body of water.
All right. Stop right there. Hold your place. Has anything else come up for you?
There's a lot of, I can't put it into words, a lot of feelings there, but it's nothing that I could really describe.
Then allow yourself to relax, close your eyes, and allow the feelings to create pictures now. Understand, a dream is an ongoing process. It is going on right now. What other images do you create now with the feelings that you have? What comes? Do not think about it, do not analyze. Say it as you see it. Well?
Nothing's coming.
Can you describe the feeling?
No.
All right. Pay attention. Continue.
Okay, once we were, our boat was airlifted to another body of water. We were allowed to wander around on the beach.
Yes.
I can remember looking into the water.
Yes.
Very light blue-green.
Yes.
And it was like looking into a crystal.
Yes.
I also remember looking out to sea because it seemed to be an island. And I could only see a certain distance, and then there was cloud banks just as far as it went.
All right.
I felt as if I was, that things were obscured, that I was not allowed to see beyond that.
All right.
There was definitely limitations there. And
Then what?
There was 4 people on the boat to begin with, and then there was 27. And the 27 seemed to be an important number for some reason. And there was a great deal of discussion on who was going to be in charge of this group of people, who was going to feed them on the island, who was going to be in charge of making rules and getting food and taking care of everything.
All right. Stop right there. Have you been enjoying her story?
It's most beautiful.
Did you have pictures and or feelings that went along with it while you were listening?
I was really more wrapped up in what she was saying than
Wrapped up?
well, enjoying the whole story.
So what was your feeling? All right. What do you make of her story?
It has to do with communication.
Is that what came to you?
Well, I guess it's more of a question mark. I don't.
Continue. In what way? Might it? I'll play along with you. Might it have to do with communication? In what way?
Nothing comes to that.
How do you wish to communicate with the world? In what way do you wish to share the ideas of yourself?
How?
I believe that is a word in your language.
Well, verbally.
Verbally. All right. What will you share verbally?
How to survive?
Survive? How to survive? You are surviving just fine.
Well, not necessarily how to survive, but how to feed and what to do.
Are you sure this is something you want to do?
Well, I'm lost right now, to be honest with you.
All right, very good. Are you sure that this is something you want to do?
Oh, yes.
You are sure?
Definitely.
All right. How do you know you are definitely sure? What is the feeling that tells you you are definitely sure? Or do you have a picture of yourself doing this that seems so real, you just simply take it for granted that that is what you are going to be doing? How do you know it is definitely sure?
I don't know how to answer that.
You can say, I just know. Go ahead.
I just know.
Oh, thank you. Now, hold on. Continue.
There's not a lot more to the dream as far as pictures. There's
All
a
right.
lot of feelings connected with it.
All right, what type?
I had the feeling that my immediate environment all around me was extremely clear. Looking at the water was clear, looking at the sea was clear. There were also around this bubble of clearness was obscurity that I could not see any further.
All right. Now, may I ask you the same question? How do you wish to share, to communicate?
Telepathically.
Telepathically.
In symbols, in ideas,
All
in whole
right.
concepts
All
rather than shut
right.
down into words.
Oh, I see. All right. You have the idea of an individual that in this sense has created a dream based upon the one side of polarity of the whole concept, and an individual on the other side of the polarity in that way of the limitation of the viewpoint, and yet at the same time the one expressing the ability of the whole concept, having the very specifically detailed knowledge of the dream, and the one expressing the supposed limitation in that way, having simply a very sketchy concept of the dream. And so in this way, recognize simply that both of you are, within yourselves, polarities that are offering you the opportunity to know that as you choose to function from your knowingness, you are going to be utilizing automatically whatever methodologies are going to be right to represent the you have chosen to be. And in this way, simply know that if there is confusion within the so-called communication to yourself within your dream, it does not have to be judged to be a lack of communication, a lack of understanding, but simply a way, compared to your physical life, that might be new for you, unexpected for you, and so you cannot find the words in your case in that sense. And in your case, because you wish it to be concept, you find that you have an abundance of ability to describe in words the entire scenario and deal with all the specifics that you feel to be, in that way, obfuscating. Recognize simply that together, if you are willing to share some identification back and forth, you can spark within each other images and visions that you have up to this point not allowed yourself to be able to think you can create within yourselves. Because in that way, you can show each other that both of you contain both sides of the polarity by reflecting as seeming individuals each side of the same polarity. Is any of this getting through at all? Mm-hmm. We realize it is, in your terms, rather esoteric. But in this way, there are, within this particular dream manifestation, the opportunities to recognize that you are in communication with yourselves as you need to be, and what is occurring here is the beginning of a willingness to recognize that you are not isolated in your ability to externalize this communication and find from each other the aspects you individually, separately need to have reflected to you to complete the dream you can be as a living, conscious, physical being. You are stopping yourselves short in that way from understanding the true connection to your dream, so that you can find the connection in the dream that is part of your physical life. If you are willing to identify the idea you have shared and see what identification that makes in someone else, so that you can begin to act as service to each other physically, showing yourselves the reflections that will allow you to see the completion of the polarity within yourself already. Not that you need the other individual to be complete, but that another individual in your society has the reflection that can allow you to know you are complete and can be consciously in communication with the higher self, the dream reality that will allow you to understand the completeness of the communication of your physical self with respect to your dream self on both ends of the polarity you are expressing. Is that getting through?
Mm-hmm. Bashar?
Yes.
I'd like to add to this dream experience.
All right.
When Dee, is that your name? When Dee said that there were 27 people in the boat, I got a rush of adrenaline, and a voice said, "Count the people in this room." And yes, there are 27 people, not including Dee.
All right.
I'd also like to say that the following night, or may have been, the following night, I was discussing this dream. Oh, I had not started discussing the dream yet. A friend of mine that I was with, Don, was telling me about a reading he had had, in which the channel had told him about 27 people that were part of the previous life of his. That he was, I guess there were people under him that he was in charge of. And when he said that number, I reacted and said, "Oh, that number came up in my dream. Is there some significance to that number?"
Obviously.
Oh, obviously.
One moment. Are you feeling any connection at all to the idea of that 27 or the people that you were surrounded with in your dream?
Nothing that I can.
Understand, stop looking for it in the past and see if your imagination tells you anything in the present about it. What does it mean to you now? Not making the connection to what you think it is supposed to mean relative to the dream you had. What does it mean to you right now? 27. When I say 27, what do you get? Don't think about it. Say the first thing that comes to your mind. 27.
It's my birthday.
Thank you. Now, you have something else to say?
We were talking about that as you were discussing that with me.
Oh, really? Do share.
I was discussing the date of the unborn child that she was expecting, and I had said to her I thought it would be maybe a birthday. And then I said, it's not the 27th, possibly the 9th.
All right. It seems to me, at any rate, that the two of you have some things to talk about. See if you can be reflections for each other to allow both of you to recognize the polarity that exists within each of you that can be blended into a knowing communication between your physical and your dream realities. Dale.
Yes.
Thank you for your synchronicity and your participation in the dream.
Thank you.
That was very enjoyable piece of social engineering. Is that correct?
Thank you. In this way, recognize that this idea, and the reason in a sense, to a degree, it seemed to perhaps become a little more complex than usual, is simply because what we were doing, in a sense, for the first time, was beginning to describe the structures that we perceive as we share with you in our perception of, with your willingness, forming and moving into place the social engineering aspects. Okay.
When you showed Dee, were you picking something up? Because I know Dee, and I know she is about the most vivid dreamer I've ever experienced in my analytical training. I'm wondering why you...
In this way, again, to depict the idea of the engineering that takes place, we simply find that in allowing ourselves to act in and of the moment and trust completely the idea, we simply find ourselves moved to that interaction as it automatically to us feels like there is a connection. Whether we immediately understand what that connection is or not is not necessary. That is the idea of trust.
Like us trusting our intuition.
Yes, completely.
And isn't it true that as we're all connected, you could do the same thing again right now with anybody and know that it will just come out all connected?
As long as you're not watching for it. That expectation is what, in your terms, let us say, throws the wrench into the spontaneity.
Even if we aren't watching for it as we're creating it, but what if I'm watching for it as you're creating it?
In this way, you may perceive the idea, but also understand that as you allow yourself to co-create an understanding in that way, then recognize that you will also simultaneously surround yourself with the same degree of synchronicity. So, be prepared. Be prepared for ecstasy. Yes, quickly.
The first half of the show tonight, I started to go into a trance feeling and felt a lot of pressure in my heart chakra area, and felt like if I let myself, ego self, get out of the way, I would have channeled something. I wanted to know if that would be, I blocked it or kept it from...
We can assist you in any interaction in that way. Feel free to speak up in that sense, allowing yourself to know that in your terms it is something that would be an enjoyable exchange, and we will assist in allowing you to recognize that you can become familiar with that portion of your consciousness. Of course. It is a part of allowing yourself to be the idea. Quickly.
Yes, I just came across a term this week that I liked a lot called imagineering.
All right.
I thought of it connected to social engineering, but you were explaining it on Wednesday night.
In a sense, almost directly, imagineering is how you create your physical reality. Thank you.
Bashar, I'd like to share a joke with you.
All right.
You can take it home to your friend.
If it translates.
Okay. Where do Essensonians keep their armies? In their sleeveys. Did it translate?
That doesn't translate. The language.
Thank you.
He's still laughing.
Do you feel that you, all of you, each and every one of you, can you feel that you have been and done many, many different things? Can you know that all of the connections that you make, including in what you construct to be the idea of your humor, allows you the opportunity in centering within that humor to recognize the symbology that allows you in that moment, the reflection, the tapping into the experience, the life, the lives, the situations that go back in your terms for thousands upon thousands of your years? Can you feel the wealth of experience, of knowledge, of understanding, of wisdom, of laughter, of life? As you allow yourselves to form a bridge between yourselves and other consciousness and your own expanded consciousness within your love of life and laughter, understand you have the foundation and the support of all that you have already been, to allow you to know that it is all right to begin to make light of the idea of love, of life, and that your essence by nature is the ecstasy of knowing, the ecstasy of sharing, of centering, of being. Your willingness to begin. Your willingness to be equal and share with us in your terms your loving friendship is a gift to us for which we will find no words in any language except in that which we share with you as our deepest and most sincere unconditional love to each and every one of you, individually and collectively. We love you. We thank you. And together we are the sharing that continues forever in the eternal now. We bid you a fond and loving good night. How'd everything go?
Great. Thanks, Dad.
You're welcome.
Sorry for the told you something.
He told me something?
Communicated something to you. You may not.
Well, all I ever get are images and feelings and pictures, so I wouldn't necessarily know when one of them stood out as a specific
Something about where
reference.
you go when you're not here.
Something about you channeling to other civilizations. Darryl, not
Barnard.
Barnard.
As what you're doing here,
The only thing that...
that's manifesting there in the same way.
Okay, well, the only thing I can get is an impression of what you're talking about. The image that comes back when you say that is like, the image I remember is like seeing like 4 blue spheres, each one a little higher than the next, and like some sort of like a silver liquid pouring out of the top of it, all the way down the bottom.
Exactly what he said.
Yeah. And he said that fourth, whatever you call the fourth identity was it, how you were getting it.
Yeah, it was like
It's on the tape. What you're describing is very close to exactly what he was saying on the tape.
Okay.
Very good, Darryl.